Well, good evening, folks. It appears to be 7 o'clock, and we no longer have that wonderful 70-degree weather. So I guess really there's nothing better for us to do tonight than have a meeting. So I will call the meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville to order. It's Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m. and we are hosting this meeting via Zoom electronically. As we do the call to order, I have a couple of things. First of all, I welcome a number of students who are on our call tonight. Chloe, Jacob, Hunter, and Stephen. I have communicated with all of you. I'm thinking, Vic, you're also a student, as it says UW student. Katie, I assume that's probably the truth for you two, and John. If at any time during the meeting you're not here, but you're here for an agenda item, then raise your hand. But otherwise, we welcome you as students. So with that, Candace, I see you. We'll start with roll call.
All right. Robin Klein is excused. Isaac Shanley.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Kathy Kopp.
I'm here.
Jason Arts is excused. Barbara Doss.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Okay, so there are 5 of us here tonight. We're running close, but Jason and Robin both contacted me earlier today about conflicts that they had. So we'll go from there. Before we start tonight, I would like to recognize and say thank you for your service to any and all veterans who might be listening. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, and on a regular basis, on a regular year, we would have some type of veterans program. We don't have a veterans program this year, but that does not mean the service of veterans is not appreciated. So recognition of veterans today, and also letting everybody know that Veterans Day is a day when the City Hall and a library will be closed. So just letting folks know that. After that, we'll go along with the consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion or vote due to their routine nature. Please indicate if you want separate discussion. We have the council minutes from October 6th and from the special meeting on October 13th. We have payment of bills. We have the financial reports for October. Appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight I have 2. One to the Airport Commission, Joe Senner, S-E-N-E-R, and one to the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee, Don Francis. And beyond that, we have licenses, just taxi driver license. So what's your pleasure?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Isaac to approve the consent calendar. We'll vote. Okay.
Shanley.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Kopp.
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, this is the time when we would regularly have any citizen comments, observations, or petitions. I am perusing those in attendance. I believe there are several people here who are here because of the information and discussion item A, pickleball, new court location. I see at least 3. I see a Matt who is here for an agenda item information and discussion C. And otherwise, I don't believe that we have any other attendees that might want to speak now. So we will go on to the reports that were in your packet. Public Transportation Committee, that would be Robin. She's not here. Howard, is there anything to add? Or, oh, it would not be Howard. It would really be Joe or Howard, either one of you. It'd really be Lori. Anybody, anything to
Yeah.
add?
Nothing to add.
Okay, Zoning Board of Appeals, Isaac, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Historic Preservation Commission, Ken?
No addition,
Housing Authority Board, Ken?
no addition,
And the Plan Commission Community Safe Routes Committee, I have nothing to add. How about you, Isaac?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Other reports that were in the packet, the Water and Sewer Financial Report. Anybody with questions? The Airport Financial Report? Or any questions on the Department Progress Reports? Well, then I guess we're just going to move right along into our first action item, which is Resolution 20-27, support of the Museum Community Development Block Grant. This would be with closed funds. So I believe, where's me? I believe that's you, Mr. Adam.
That is correct. So this is just to kind of recap everybody. So we were nominated as one of the 2 potential kind of grant applicants to go in front of Grant County related to their community development block grant close funds. And what it is we submitted 2 applications. One was directly related to the Hammer Robbins roof replacement for the museum, and the other one was a kind of listing of some various sidewalk projects that potentially could be done in the city. We received notification back that the 1905 Hammer Robbins roof replacement was selected to be brought to Grant County for their consideration. So we have an application essentially that was submitted to them and have done some kind of finalization of costs. So the most up-to-date estimate that we have received is $295,480 is what will be submitted for this application. What in talking with Ron Brisboy, who is the Grant County Economic Development Director, he indicated a standard practice would be for the municipality that potentially could receive these funds would be to submit a resolution of support. So that was what was brought forth to the council at the last meeting as a discussion item, and then the direction was kind of given to have this moved forward to action. There is going to be essentially a board meeting in December, and once we kind of know the actual dates of that, I will make sure to send that out to all of the kind of council members, because I think it would be kind of good practice for us to attend, which more than likely will be virtually, just to again show our support. But the intention of this project then falls directly in line with our strategic planning for 2021, where we talked about trying to replace the roof. So this would be a great step forward in not only helping the museum solve some of their problems with the issue of having to try to strategically place buckets and pools and having to do that, but it's also a great addition that would help in continually improving our strategic plan of the museum, which is upgrades. And so allowing this roof to be replaced definitely preserves the collection that is there and allows for potential future project and planning, knowing that that roof is where it is. And I guess I will turn it over. Eric, is there anything from the museum standpoint you want to kind of add on top?
No, other than it's a magnificent building, one of the more prominent buildings in the city, the second oldest existing public school, second only to the building immediately adjacent to it, the Great Rock School building. And by continuing to ensure that they are maintained in a respectable, responsible way, they do great service to our community. And we could not be more grateful to you, Adam, and to others for helping to make this opportunity possible. The existing roof has served us since 1957, so it's certainly done its job well. And this new roof will go on to serve the community for many decades to come. Feel free to let me know if there's any questions. Otherwise, just thank you.
Okay, and I would point out that Adam did send on the 28th of October to all council members in a separate email, the actual application. Because the one that was included in the last packet and also the one in this packet
I know.
is not the right one, but you did all receive that right after the council meeting last time on the 28th of October. So apologies for that not being replaced this time. I'm sure that Adam will see that it's replaced in the packet that is now going to be online.
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to go around and ask any questions. Isaac, any questions?
No questions.
Eileen, any questions?
No questions.
Kathy, any questions?
No questions.
Ken, any questions?
My question is on the sample motion. I believe I heard you, Adam, say a number different from the 251,000. And do you want in this motion, no listing of a number? The motion as written here, sample motion lists no number that I can find in the resolution or the sample on the first page. Do you want to have a motion without a listing of the number?
That's the intention I had, just in case anything would change. That's why I specifically left the number off of the actual resolution in the motion.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, and Adam, the revised number you mentioned was 295,480.
Correct.
And then the city has committed 10,000 toward that.
Yes.
All right, so the actual hope for grant is 285,480.
So yeah, they will fund, that's an option. They actually may fund the entire amount, so we shall see.
Oh, well, that would be even better.
That's up to
All
the
right.
council.
All right, so do I hear a motion on this resolution?
I would move to adopt resolution 2027A, resolution supporting funding from Grant County CDBG-CLOSC funds to support the Mining and Ronald Jameson Museum's 1905 Henry Robbins roof replacement.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Kathy to support this resolution. Candace will vote.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian.
Yes,
Motion carries.
Okay, and that is, I guess it's only one thing. So that is the end of our action items for tonight. So now we'll go ahead and work through our information and discussion items. And the first of these is new court location. And I believe, Luke, this belongs to you.
Yes, so last time we presented the idea of pickleball courts in Legion Park. This idea was brought to us by a group that is the Platteville Area Pickleball Association, or PAPA. They are currently working with Inspiring Community with the goal of raising funding to build these dedicated courts in Legion Park. With that location in specific, with that location in mind, we have approached Platteville Dairy Days, Platteville Youth Diamond Sports, and the lead volunteer for the ice rink to discuss that location. None of those groups have expressed any major concern, although the ice rink has expressed that they would like the lights and water moved because the ice rink would need to be moved to a northern location in the park versus the southwest corner, which is where we are looking to locate this pickleball court. Since that time, the Parks, Forest, and Recreation Committee has met and discussed this. They did choose to table the motion and directed staff to reach out to all neighboring properties for both Legion Park and Westview Park, and also reach out to the Platteville School District. I did send out those letters, and within that I did indicate that I did provide several options for those people to get back to us with feedback. Those included by letter, via email, or by attending one of our meetings. And I fear by offering that third option, people may have been waiting to attend, looked up our regular scheduled meeting and were prepared to attend one of those meetings, because to date we've only received one feedback request or feedback notice, which happened to be from Isaac Shanley, who lives next to the Legion Park. Isaac can probably summarize his feelings, but overall I would say he is in support of the Legion Park location and has talked to some of his neighbors, and they seem supportive of that as well, although expressed the same concerns that would like to see the ice skating rink remain, and make sure that the lights and water are moved as part of this project. The school district also has replied to us. And the school district has indicated they would be supportive of either a Legion Park or Westview location, noting that if it's at Legion Park, the middle school and high school would utilize pickleball as part of their Phi Ed program, or if it is at Westview Park, the Westview school would use pickleball as a part of their physical education program. So generally overall supportive. I know Jason Arch has spoke with Adam and expressed concerns that he would like to see the council delay a vote until after the Parks, Forest, and Recreation Committee has a chance to meet on it. I think that would be an option, or I think that if the council were to want to, bump things ahead, could make a motion that is contingent on it matching the motion made by the Parks, Forest, and Recreation Committee at their next meeting. In that case, it wouldn't need to come back to the council.
Actually, Luke, I don't think that's an option because this is on for information and discussion. I don't think we can take action on this. Questions or people who wish to speak. If you wish to speak, either use the reactions, use the button that allows you to raise your hand, or send a note in the chat. In the meantime, I do have a question, Luke. Is the space marked at each park where this court would go, where these courts would go?
I drove by Legion Park yesterday and it was still marked up in Legion Park. I have not seen it marked in Westview Park, as that's kind of our backup location, I would say.
So you didn't mark it, or you did mark it?
I did not mark it. I believe members of the Papa group have marked it. Because like I said, I drove by and I did see it marked.
I'd like to see, I believe it should also probably be marked out at Westview in the event that people want to see a comparison.
I could go do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Thursday.
Isaac, any questions or comments? I mean, I know
No
you spoke in favor of it last time. Okay.
Yep. Like Luke had stated, I'd actually talked to some of my neighbors, and none of them had anything negative to say or thought it was a bad idea. The one thing that one couple did say is, because they do like seeing the ice skating ring and the kids there, is that if they say that they're going to move it, that actually gets done. Not just, yes, we will move the lights at some point. They want to make sure that's guaranteed that will get done.
Okay. Eileen?
Luke, I was looking at the master plan for the parks that was completed last year. And it indicated in there that one idea was to put in additional parking. And I believe it was on the west side, somewhere close to where the ice skating rink was. I'm not real sure exactly how much parking was anticipated, but it was mentioned with the Brodsky Center and big events, and also other activities going on in the park. It might be necessary to have additional parking. So I'm wondering how this location would impact that plan.
Sure. So our comprehensive plan does list parking, and in your packet, you should be able to see on there, I did outline an area where overflow parking could still fit into this. Essentially, we would look at working with the existing pavement that is there currently in the park. So there's some pavement still remaining next to just south of the horseshoe courts. And we could add a triangle essentially to complete that, to allow parallel parking within that parking lot. However, I would note we do not have that currently funded for 2021, but it would still be possible at some point in the future should it become a priority of the council. The other we note in the comprehensive plan for overflow parking is to the north of the existing parking lot. So we do leave that area on all of our plans vacant, so that if there's a need for additional parking, people can continue following the lines on the grass into that field to the north of the existing larger parking lot.
Okay.
Hey, Kathy.
That's all I have.
Okay, Kathy?
And I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Good me. Ken.
Your voice is really quiet again tonight, Barb.
Oh, I tell you. All right, is it better now?
Yes.
Keep switching off this. There's two speaker systems and somehow it switches. Okay, Ken, do you have any questions?
No, I guess maybe one to Luke in his department progress report. You say the committee, Park, Forestry, Recreation, choose not to act on the location. So that means they're just not going to say yes or no to this location. Just go ahead with it. Is that what it
No,
means?
no, they would like to provide feedback. They just wanted feedback from the citizens surrounding those properties and the school district before they were making a motion. I was hoping to have, a bunch of feedback for them, so we could call a special meeting before this meeting, but only having the one letter from Isaac, I didn't feel it was appropriate to kind of rush through this. I don't want to ask for feedback and then not give appropriate time for people to provide that feedback.
So the committee will eventually make a recommendation.
Yes, I mean, I can't guarantee that, but all indications would say they want to provide feedback on this in terms of the location. I would also note that based on what we've received so far, it does look like Legion Park is the preferred location from nearly everyone. So I anticipate, it sure seems to me things are pointing in that direction.
And your Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee meeting is Monday night, the 16th of November, next Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
I have no problem with the location.
Okay, and Jason isn't here, but Jason serves on the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee and specifically asked that it go back to the committee and that the committee discuss it and bring it forward, which is why it's on for information and discussion tonight, not on for action. So unless there's someone else who wants to speak, and I haven't had anybody here from the group asked to speak, we're going to proceed to our next item, which is our 2020 goals update.
I'd like to make sure that this is put on the next agenda for
Yeah,
action.
Yeah,
So,
it will be, Isaac. After we're giving the Parks and Recreation and Forestry Committee an opportunity
I
to
understand
look at
that.
it on Monday. So yeah, we'll put it on for action on the 24th. Okay, any other? Okay, well then let's move on to 2020 goal update. Adam?
Okay, so obviously in your packet was just an update of kind of where things are at with Q3 in regards to 2020 goals. And as you can see, we've accomplished a lot and also saw some things that unfortunately got delayed because of COVID. But overall was just kind of some information updates, which have been provided a lot within kind of the weekly updates that we give to the council members. But this was just kind of a nice way, obviously, to kind of summarize and get out to the public. The majority of the street projects that we have done are completed. Unfortunately, some of the work in regards to the city IT server operating systems and cameras, that was delayed till 2021 due to COVID. We continue to kind of brainstorm with the wastewater treatment plant about that now has been put into the 5-year CIP related to the aeration systems, the standby generators, the manhole replacements in the industrial park did occur. And then just kind of goes through again, our fire department comprehensive study is still in the kind of stages right now. We are anticipating to receive a draft by the end of this month, and then they will work on completing that. The target is they still indicate they will be able to provide that to the city by the end of the year. Obviously, the Brodsky Center was turned over officially to the city, and we have been with COVID-19 restrictions, hosting events accordingly. The election obviously was there for anybody in districts 1, 2, and 4. We have continually been working on Emerald Ash Borer. The community development department did work with the McDonald's property, where that now obviously is where the new laundromat is, just to kind of remember that. We continue to work with PADIC on kind of industrial development options. Marketing some of that has been kind of put on hold in regards to potential billboards for the museum. That's something Eric and I continue to kind of meet on and look at that. There continues to be landscaping taking place around all the park signs. That was in kind of Luke's update. We continue to kind of work with the communications specialist, and I are working together on logo rollouts. So you've seen that. We're going to be meeting later this week with the chamber to kind of talk about their marketing scheme and how we can partner with them. Obviously, we continue to hold a lot of varying meetings with key partners from the school district, the university, the Chamber of Commerce, and the incubator. We completed our strategic plan. So that now is something we are going to start marketing. You'll start seeing in future meetings here about looking into how we start prioritizing kind of 2021 and 2022 and 2023 goals. As the Planning Commission knows, Joe continues to throw at you some varying options for zoning ordinances and changes. The main one they've been looking at now is the kind of conversation of a conservation subdivision. So that's something that eventually will make its way, hopefully, to the council. Employee relations, obviously, that's something we continue to work with, and rollout of kind of policies with COVID-19 has been delayed just because of how they change every second. So that's something that we're going to be looking at, obviously, in the next couple of, prioritizing in the year to come. But otherwise, that's kind of the quick, short version. If there's any kind of specific questions, I guess council members have on a topic, either myself or department heads, I'll do our best to kind of answer them.
Okay, Isaac, any questions on any topic?
No questions.
Okay, Eileen.
No questions. Thanks for the update.
Kathy.
No questions.
Ken.
Last night on Channel 15, Madison, there was a presentation about recycling of waste that are electronics. How is Platteville involved in doing this? Do we take part in any of this? I guess I'd like to see what's happening on the part of Platteville, because they were pointing out, as far as Madison, that considerable recycling is done as far as electronic waste.
Okay, Adam or Howard?
There is a state law that requires electronics to be recycled. We do not provide that as a city paid service. People are required to pay for that service through Faraday or any other authorized recycler. But we have in fact been complying with the law. It's just that people have to pay for the recycling.
Okay, as far as recycling, then where does this material go? We've fairly received it. Where does it go as far as an old TV or any electronic appliance?
I don't recall.
Where does it go?
I don't recall the intermediate recycler, but there is a recycler, I believe, in the Madison area that Faraday contracts with in order to do the recycling properly. I don't recall their name. I can get that for you.
That's what I found as lacking in the program. They didn't tell us as to where you could send your things as far as recycling, and whether we could hook on with Madison or some other city to do recycling. Thank you.
Okay. Adam, thanks again for the update. You're right, there is a lot going on. And we thank city staff for all the work that they do on behalf of the residents of this community. Moving on, we'll take the next information and discussion topic, which is enterprise fleet management. And again, Adam, I believe this is yours.
Yeah, so this is something obviously that the city staff throughout kind of 2020, we've been having conversations with representatives from Enterprise Fleet Management regarding a potential opportunity for the leasing of a portion of our vehicle fleet. And obviously, as you noticed, Matt is here tonight from Enterprise, so he is going to eventually I'm going to turn it over to him and let him kind of give his spiel and think what we thought. But basically, one of the things obviously in the city of Platteville's 2021 to 2023 strategic plan has been the goal of continuing to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer resources. So one of the opportunities that kind of presented itself as staff has had some conversations was the idea of looking at potentially, instead of buying our vehicles, leasing them through a management company and looking at some of the advantages and considerations that would be. So the majority of conversations that staff has had is looking at an initial leasing plan that would allow staff to lease 13 vehicles. Now, one thing that is advantageous about this type of plan is we have the ability, based on our budget, to work with Enterprise or any vendor really, and kind of tweak it as necessary. So based on where our capital improvement plan is really what allows this program to be efficient, and kind of gives staff the ability to work with Enterprise or a vendor and kind of go back and forth on ensuring we're doing the best service and providing the best service to our residents. So what this does is the amount can be adjusted to account for the total dollar value represented within the city's operating and water and sewer capital improvement plan budget, so our CIP. So one of the things we've been looking at is between the water and sewer and also the city, there's about $77,000 that was earmarked in 2021 to go towards the replacement of vehicles. So that was kind of our starting point of looking at potentially, what could be done in a lease program with those dollars that were allocated. So as everybody kind of knows, the city currently does not have what's considered like an established depreciation fund or a developed standing budget capacity in the CIP to ensure vehicles are rotated out after a useful life is met. Our CIP, as you know, is based on kind of the performance going on as far as our financial management plan. And sometimes that can cause vehicles to either be, pushed back or delayed based on the amount of money that's available for our CIP. So one of the things that we kind of look at is trying to see if we can't come up with a more concrete system or number of what actual dollars would be needed on a routine basis to replace all of the city's vehicles and get in a better rotation plan. So as some of the data that's going to be talked about throughout this conversation is that right now 70% of the current light and medium duty fleet is over 10 years old. The oldest vehicle in our fleet is approaching 23 years, and that's in our parks department right now. So some of the things that obviously we've talked about as staff is we would like to look at the city needs to either develop a standing as an every year budget capacity to purchase vehicles on a rational basis, or we need to have budget capacity for leasing vehicles. The staff feels the consultantship and service enterprise and services Enterprise would provide as our purchase and sales agent is a huge asset in selling these vehicles at the most opportune time. So it kind of gives us a direct line in with somebody that understands when we should be buying vehicles, either low, selling high, et cetera, and gives us a real window into having somebody do that kind of financial analysis for us on the side. This then obviously would lower the life cycle ownership versus what we experience today and holding on to vehicles as long as possible. So as the staff note kind of indicates, Enterprise is going to be presenting more detailed information kind of on benefits, financials, and other information. But what staff really has kind of noticed throughout this kind of learning experience and discussions is a summary of the benefits that we feel would be represented in going to a leasing model. Is number one, a consistent annual budget for vehicle replacement. So it really allows us to get more proactive in knowing what every year and kind of forecasting into the future, what the city really should be putting aside towards vehicles, instead of being somewhat reactionary and kind of having to kind of, game plan or pick and choose or hope that that money is there. Number two, obviously, is that newer vehicles would increase employee safety and satisfaction. There is a potential for financial savings due to fuel economy on newer versus older vehicles. And one of the real savings that we anticipate is that there would be a financial savings due to less maintenance and repair costs. So obviously with newer vehicles, they require less repair. So our mechanic really can spend more time focusing on some of the larger vehicles and equipment that is costly to either have performed externally, and over time it would absolve the city from any large repairs in older vehicles and allow our mechanic to just do a lot of the more routine maintenance and various things like that. I've reached out to 2 municipalities that currently have gone into this program, and that was the city of Manitowoc and the city of Oak Creek, who both expressed the relationship with Enterprise Fleet Management has been very good, and expressed the fact that one of the things they really like is, kind of as I indicated, is that Enterprise Fleet Management acts as your buying and selling consultant, and that can be extremely beneficial because they're able to do analysis and kind of determining, okay, this particular vehicle maybe should be replaced every year because it has such a high resale value, and et cetera. Then they kind of brainstorm which ones need to be 3 years, 4 years, et cetera. So some of the things obviously to consider are the budget and fiscal impacts that this potential leasing program could have. So right now, the city obviously can remain the status quo and continue to budget vehicles when they absolutely need replacing. Currently, vehicles are put into the CIP based on the necessity or the replacement. The city could move forward with building into budget capacity to own vehicles and ensure replacement when they have exceeded their useful life. Or potentially we could continue to go down this conversation of executing a vehicle leasing program in which Enterprise Fleet Management can provide a financial breakdown. One of the things obviously city staff has continued to discuss is the impact that this might have on, the insurance rates. So there would be something that's something that city staff would need to dig into a little further into the impact. But overall, in talking with kind of municipalities and also in having conversations with Enterprise, that is going to be a marginal, you may see somewhat of an increase, but overall with some of the safety, it could decrease. So those are some additional things that we kind of need to look into further. But obviously what city staff is kind of looking for is further guidance from council members regarding, what the thought process is in entering into a, potential master equity lease agreement and maintenance agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management. So at this time, what I'll do is turn it over to Matt to kind of go over his kind of presentation and give you guys some additional information.
Great, thank you, Adam, and council members, City of Platteville. I appreciate the opportunity to just learn more about your city and give the opportunity of what Enterprise can bring to you all. So first and foremost, City of Platteville is not the guinea pig. We have multiple government municipalities throughout the state of Wisconsin, a couple that Adam mentioned that would be great references, school districts, cities, counties, and special districts that we do work with in the government sector. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I got a couple slides I'm going to go through, high level overview, and then I'm going to roll through some of the more detailed synopsis that Adam did lay out a little bit, but it's going to be able to lay it out in chronological order of kind of the situation, what we have found, and the results of doing so through the due diligence process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. If you all can give me just a quick head nod that you can see my screen, perfect. We're becoming masters of the Zoom here, so all right. Okay, so on the screen here, you can see our current local partners. I am proud to say that I did sit through the City of West Bend's council meeting last night at the same time, and they approved our partnership to move forward. So that is fantastic. Just another name drop to use. Jay Shambo is a city administrator there, would be more than willing to connect with Adam and company to just express, the due diligence process that took some time to get through. And right now we're on the path of ordering some new vehicles for the 2021 model year. So City of Wausau, City of Oak Creek, Racine County. You can see the map down here of Wisconsin. These are the highlighted counties that we work with, as well as some sheriff departments as well. So Again, most of you are very familiar probably with La Crosse. The city of La Crosse is just north of you. They came on board here in June of 2020. So if any council members would like references, phone numbers, or emails to any of the references here, we can provide that upon request. To really understand what we're bringing to the table and what enterprise fleet management will do for the city of Platteville and its taxpayers is we're going to provide a fleet management program, a professional program that allows your taxpayers to spend have you guys spend the taxpaying dollar the most optimum way possible. So not only are we going to help you with the acquisition side of things, we're going to find the best vehicle with the best government incentives out there that perform the best. We're also going to provide a funding mechanism that allow you all to take advantage of our funding opportunities for the vehicles. We're going to help with license and title and registrations. We're also going to help with the logistics and upfitting of the vehicles. So there's multiple vehicles within the city, parks and water and sewer and streets that will need upfitting done. So we help with the logistics, delivery, and even capping some of that cost into the lease as well. We have maintenance and fuel programs just to track your operating costs if need be, as well as accident and risk management services and telematics services if that's something the city looks at an opportunity to explore. So again, vehicle resale, being able to buy and sell vehicles at the right time of the year and selling them to the right person and the right buyer and the right sales channel is very important. We're the same company as Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So over our portfolio worldwide, we manage 2.2 million vehicles. We buy 1 million cars a year, and we also sell 1 million cars a year. So we definitely have a great footprint in knowing when and when not to buy and when not to sell certain vehicles, depending on the year, the miles, who the buyers are, the condition of vehicles, all takes into consideration when we decide to help our clients cycle through vehicles. One of the key metrics that we look at is what a vehicle's worth at any point of its life. So when you look at the screen here, we're looking at a half-ton pickup truck, just a standard pickup truck. If you and all as public servants and constituents would go out and buy this vehicle ourselves, we would be spending roughly $37,000 for this vehicle here. The city of Platteville can roughly buy that vehicle for $10,000 less than the general public. And why that's important is not only do you have the ability to buy vehicles very aggressive, the government municipality vehicle travels probably 1/5 of the miles per year that a normal public vehicle would travel. And so what that recipe means is when you buy a vehicle very, very low and drive that vehicle very little miles each year, the value of that vehicle holds true through its life. So what you're going to see on the screen here is an example of a 5-year vehicle and a 10-year-old vehicle and the cash outlay on what you bought it for, and then what you sold it for. So we have a 2011 half-ton pickup at 115,000 miles. The rough value of that vehicle, $6,000. The cash outlay for that vehicle, the cash difference between what you bought it and what you sold it for is about a $21,000 cash outlay. Same scenario for a 5-year-old pickup truck at about 63,000 miles. We're selling that for roughly $16,000. So if you do the simple math between these two numbers here, it's roughly the same cash outlay. So right now, the city of Platteville, just operating a pickup truck on a 5-year cycle would be winning versus running a vehicle at 10 years old, just on simple cash outlay. What we've been able to do nationwide, over 1,400 government clients, managing over 50,000 government leases, is we've realized that there's a better time to cycle certain vehicles at certain points of their life. And when you take a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old pickup truck, for example, the cash outlay for a government entity can sometimes result in a negative cent per mile operating cost, which is a good thing, meaning it's necessarily a profit center or a break-even point to run a vehicle 1 or 2 years old in comparison to a 5 or 10-year-old cycle. And as Adam stated, 70% of your fleet today is 10 years or older. So exactly what we're doing is we're shifting the model a little bit. We're taking advantage of the buying power of the government entity, taking advantage of the enterprising selling power, and the lower operating costs. And when you turn vehicles at the right point of their life and take that positive equity and you roll it into the program year after year, you start to see a better overall performing program. Most of the time we have significant savings. Entities with around 20 to 25 vehicles typically see more of a break even, but the benefit is you're running healthier vehicles on a much shorter cycle than what you currently are doing today. this is the fleet profile that we started with a few months back with the city of Platteville. What you're going to see on the left here is just a fleet profile breakdown. These are the vehicles that we started with. We actually ended up finding a few more vehicles that we can incorporate into the program. So this is just the beginning stages of what we started with on 23 vehicles. The average age is about 12 years old, and the average annual mileage per vehicle over all car classes is about 5,500 miles per year. And essentially what we've developed was a replacement criteria. Again, on the screen here just shows you how we're going to replace your currently owned vehicles year in and year out. So in year one in 2021, we're aggressively replacing 13 vehicles. The next year, replacing 2, 1, 3, and then 2. And you can see here, this is simply just a way to generate how the criteria works, or the replacement plan would work. With all that data that was given from the city and putting this into our proprietary analysis, we're able to show overall fleet budget over the next 10 years on what a leasing program looks like. And for all those who are asking themselves, like, is this a dealership lease, or what kind of leasing is this? Because a lot of times most people think of a lease as mileage penalty type style lease, no equity at the end, wear and tear penalties. This is a commercial government driven lease. It's a funding method it's a funding mechanism that allows you to fund a vehicle to a reduced book value with all ownership benefits. So the city of Platteville would keep all ownership and equity in the vehicle upon sale after paying off any remaining book value that's left on the books for that unit. So high level view, what we're showing here is we're moving from a 23-year cycle. So on average, over the last 20 years, the city has bought in 1 vehicle per year. So when you do the math, it puts the city on a 23-year cycle. We're then shifting our plan to a 3-year cycle. So we're cycling out vehicles on average at 3 years. So some less and some a little bit longer, depending on the costs and the upfit needs of those vehicles. And so what you're going to see over the next 10 years is we're constantly replacing vehicles, and the new vehicles that you would receive with Enterprise, they all have different terms. So half-ton trucks are typically on a 12-month term, 3/4-ton trucks are on a 24-month term, and then anything above and beyond that, that's a little bit more expensive, like your 1-tons or F550s are going to be at least 3 to 5 year terms. So that's why you're going to see different fluctuation. You're going to see the fluctuation in the numbers on the annual needs. But what you're going to see by 2026 is a fully penetrated fleet, your fixed lease payments essentially upon delivery, and then we're constantly selling year in and year out your currently owned vehicles until they're no longer in existence. And then we're constantly selling off the Enterprise leased vehicles. Every single year, there's always going to be a vehicle to cycle. So when you take your total lease payments, plus the equity in the first 5 years of your current vehicles being cycled out, as well as the equity from the leased vehicle fleet, and you take your total capital budget, this is what you're roughly going to be spending or expecting to spend of your taxpayers for your capital budget for this program. The best part about this program is we can get you on a 3-year cycle compared to your 23-year cycle, so 20-year difference with a 5-year upfront savings of $115,000 in net cash difference from what you're typically spending on your average $77,000 per year budget, and a sustainable savings of basically a break even. So what this means is it's costing the taxpayers little, or we're not saving or spending any more than what you're doing today to operate a healthier and rejuvenated fleet. So what I'm going to do for the sake of time is I'm going to shift gears here, and I'm going to share the fleet synopsis. I'm going to go ahead and stop share and then reshare just to make sure that we're all looking at the same thing. Adam is in possession of this today. So Adam, feel free to pass this to the council members and company who would like to see the fleet synopsis here. So basically what I did is I took the analysis and the months of work that Adam and his team and myself put together and broke down the situation. So like Adam said, 70% of the fleet, medium duty fleet, is currently 10 years or older. The average age of your fleet is roughly 12 years old. You're on a 23-year cycle, so it takes you 23 years on average to cycle through all your vehicles. You have 12 different vehicle types that cover over roughly 27 vehicles that would fall into this program. The objective is to identify an effective vehicle life cycle that maximizes the potential equity at the time of resale. So understanding the buying power is obviously known in the government sector, but understanding what the vehicle is worth at any point of its life is just as important. So what we have found in the first 5 years is there's going to be roughly $115,000 net cash savings compared to the average sustainable budget spent by your year in and year out on your vehicle program. It's going to provide us sustainable fleet costs and predictable year-over-year opportunity to understand what you're truly going to be spending. It's going to reduce your maintenance costs significantly, increase your fuel economy, and overall improve the employee morale and coincide with a net cash or break-even budget essentially over the next 10 years. The additional benefits is obviously the improved safety and risk, less downtime for the city mechanic, as Adam already alluded to. What you're going to see here again is the supported fleet profile analysis that we're talking about and what we use to get to where we are today. And then below here is basically a menu pricing that illustrates the 2021 budget. Essentially, we have roughly a $77,000 or so budget that we have worked within. I'm going to zoom in as much as I can to make sure this is big enough. And so when we take that budget into consideration, keep in mind, we do have half-ton style trucks, 3/4-ton style trucks, 1-ton cabin chassis with dump bodies on the back, 1-ton dump bodies that are, or 1-ton pickup trucks with no dump bodies, and then medium duty, so basically your Ford F-550s of the world, included in this analysis, along with the upfitting cost needs that each vehicle would need. So whether it's signage or lights or dump bodies that are going on the back, we have that incorporated in this as well. So when you look at the vehicle types, the quantities of each, the terms allotted for each of those car classes, the expected annual mileage on average, this is the capitalized price of each vehicle type individually with the extra cost added into those vehicles for the upfit equipment. This is the monthly lease rate. So this is capped. This is the lease rate with all our interest costs and management fees that are associated with doing business with Enterprise, along with any captain costs for the upfit equipment. When our government clients get to a certain point of upfit costs, we ask for a certain percent of that down upfront as just like a down payment to mitigate risk. We can further talk in detail, Adam and company, on some of the parameters around that. We do have the ability to maybe remove that out-of-pocket cost. It just depends on certain things and certain vehicle types that we're doing. So again, off topic, but Adam, we can discuss a little bit more in detail. But even with that cash outlay that we would request in this analysis, we're looking for a 2021 total cash outlay of $130,000. When we're going to move our eyes to this side of the screen here, that $130,000 carries over to this side. When we sell off those 15 vehicles that we're targeting to replace in the first initial year, there's roughly $62,000 coming back to the city of Platteville for those older vehicles that we are selling off. So what we're doing is we're capping that budget at a $68,000 estimated spend for 2021. And when you look at it into year 2, when we're selling off the first round of vehicles, those 10 half-ton trucks at the end of the first year, we have roughly $4,500 of positive equity from what the vehicle is owed on the books versus what it's going to sell for. So for example, this $34,000 truck, that actually $33,000 and change that you bought this vehicle for is estimated to sell for $33,000 to $34,000 through our public channels of our sales channels. And so when you look at that and it's on the books for roughly $28,000, that difference is what the city of Platteville would receive back. So we're being very conservative at 45. We actually think it's going to be a little bit greater, but I just wanted to stay conservative as much as possible. So we take that over 10 vehicles, we have roughly $45,000 of equity that would be coming back at the end of year 1 into year 2. So even if the city did not replace any more vehicles into year 2, this is the dollar amount that we would be allotting for and going into year 2. And the other thing that I did not consider is, Adam, on this analysis, if we ordered vehicles today, they wouldn't deliver till probably February, March, or April. So essentially your effective budget will not be $68,000. It would be much less than that based on, the vehicles are not charged to the city until the vehicles actually deliver. So this would be much different. This is basically taking a 12-month snapshot. If this was, if you were a customer a year ago, this is roughly what it would look like. So with that, there's a couple of other things attached, like a case study from the city of Wausau. Over the last 4 years, we netted about a $480,000 cash flow improvement from their 64 vehicles. That equated from positive resale gains, improved fuel economy, significant fuel economy improvement, and just overall safety and compliance, and just using the resources to better their position. You also get account management with Enterprise. You have a lot of technology and resources available to the city that you can utilize to track analytics, reporting for your council meetings, understanding where your current state of the union is with your fleet. You not only have dedicated fleet experts assigned to the city of Platteville, but you all get to see all the data and analytics for yourself to make the all final decisions that you would make. So with that, I'll yield back to Adam. I do have references available here of current partners. There's more than what's on here, obviously, but the names and contact information that Adam used for his reach out are here as well. So I'll yield back my time. I appreciate the opportunity. Just looking forward to utilizing more city resources to continue the conversation tonight.
All right.
All right, Adam, do you want me to
Sure.
do a round robin here, or do you have anything more you want to say?
No, I think that's enough. We probably threw at you. So why don't we start with a round robin?
Okay, so this would be my first question. I'll start by saying this does not include the police fleet from what I can see.
So initially, that is correct. So we're looking at it more of a phase 1, phase 2 approach. So phase 1, let's look at citywide vehicles, non-ERV vehicles. And if it makes sense and we can prove the concept and it's bought in by your council members and it's best for your taxpayers, then fantastic. Then what's going to happen is we'll start slowly introducing the idea with the police interceptors and ERVs. We have police departments across the country, sheriff's departments locally that are actively doing this today. Sheriff at Buffalo County, just north of you, and Dunn County are actively doing this. The La Crosse County Sheriff is doing this as well. So we can definitely work within that phase 2 scenario, but we want to make sure that the city vehicles are taken care of first and foremost, because it needs to work with the citywide versus going into the police department first and foremost.
And I also believe it does not include the fire department.
Correct.
All non-CDL vehicles is our targeted niche. So 26,000 pound vehicles or smaller. So like the city and water, or the water and sewer department, they have, Ford F-550s with service bodies on the back and dump bodies. We work with those vehicles because they are under 26,000 pounds.
But not snowplows.
That is correct. We can work with 1 tons or 1.5 ton trucks that do have plows on them, but not your tandem axle dump trucks.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood what vehicles we were looking at. Okay, Isaac, questions, comments, suggestions?
Well, as a person that averages about 35,000 miles a year in my own vehicle, I know what it's like having a new vehicle. The biggest thing I would see here is the fact it looks like after about the 3rd or 4th year, almost all of our vehicles would be under a warranty program instead of having to do out of pocket expense. So that right there saves a lot of money. The fuel economy, I think, would be another thing. I guess the only downfall that I may see is the fact that we may not be buying from a local dealership. It's kind of one of those probably outweighs it due to the fact that, I can't remember how many vehicles was going to be overall, but at one point, having all those vehicles under warranty would just be a huge savings. Not including the fuel mileage, other things, just the warranty part to me makes sense in itself right there. So.
Yeah, you brought up a great point, Isaac. So the buying method certainly would change. However, we would deliver most vehicles to your direct dealers in town there for logistic reasons. It makes sense. So the dealers do charge Enterprise a courtesy delivery fee for delivering vehicles through those dealerships. The best part is all your outsourced maintenance and service and warranty items can stay within those dealerships as well. So a lot of times dealerships really want to make sure they maintain relationships on the maintenance and service side, because that's where they make most of their profitability from. So again, the acquisition methods does change a little bit, but we still deliver through those respected dealers if logistics makes sense.
All right. And then a question for you. So right now you were stating that we have, I can't remember how many different brands of vehicles you have now. Is there, if we were to go with your program, will we more like specifically staying with one type of brand, or will we still be spread out Chevy, GMC, Ford, or? How would that
Yeah,
work?
great question. Uniformity is key in fleet management. So finding the right manufacturer to represent as many vehicles as possible. Just with uniformity with your constituents, it's recognizable in the marketplace. Ultimately, the city officials have the right to say what vehicle and brands they want to represent. For example, specific vehicle types like the Ford F-550 may be a better fit for specific applications versus a Silverado or Ram product in comparison. So ultimately, you have the ability to pick whatever models are best suited for you. What we're going to do is we have the ability to show you what a Ram, Ford, or Chevy, call it half-ton pickup truck, for example, what the best government buy each vehicle has and what the best resale value might be on each vehicle. And then we compare total cost of ownership to see which vehicle would cost your city taxpayers the least amount of money to operate.
All right. That's the only questions I have.
Okay, thanks. Eileen, we'll move on to you. Unmute yourself.
I think Adam mentioned something about insurance, that we would be looking at that yet, Adam. So I guess I would like, that information, obviously. And then the other question I have is, let's say we agree to this lease situation and 10 years down the road, we say, yeah, we think we want to go back to buying our own vehicles. And how does that work? We wouldn't own any vehicles or very few vehicles at that point. Do we have the option perhaps to buy some of the vehicles directly from you, Matt? Or is it that you take them all back and we start over as a city?
Yes, great question. So the leasing program has 100% flexibility in it in comparison to a closed-end dealership lease does not have much flexibility. So if you opted to stop leasing vehicles but wanted to continue to pay them down, and then once they're paid off, you would then actually own the vehicles, so you keep all ownership benefits. If you wanted to buy out the vehicles at any point of their life with Enterprise, you certainly can do that. And then we would release the title back to the city of Platteville. So your options are unlimited. The flexibility is there. And ultimately, our goal is to keep your partnership as long as possible. But if that were to come up, you do have the option to buy out or keep paying down the vehicles and then until they're completely owned outright. And then the title would be then transferred to the city of Platteville.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Okay, Kathy.
Okay, so just to clarify, if Matt, the city does this, I'm assuming these vehicles are all under warranty. Who does the warranty work? Can that stay local, or is that all go back to wherever these vehicles were purchased?
Great question. So for example, if it's a GM or Chevy or GMC product, that vehicle, if it's under warranty and had warranty service needed, it would go right back to your local Chevy dealer, or whether it's a Ford or a Chrysler product, it would go to its respected dealer that you choose to go to, whether that's in city of Platteville or in Dubuque, Iowa, wherever it might be, you get to choose where that vehicle goes.
Okay. The couple questions. I really have a concern about the effect that's not, I mean, we're in effect bypassing our local new car dealers. Is there an opportunity? I know for a fact that I have leased a vehicle locally, and the warranty work is all covered, turn it back in, and it's very similar. Is that a possibility that the city can look at our local car dealers to find out if they have this type of a lease program that would work for a fleet? I don't know. I mean, my experience is all personal. I don't know about fleet, but I think the one concern I have is making sure that we take into consideration our local businesses and make sure that they or at least part of the discussion and the consideration. I mean, they're taxpayers, they're community members. They're here every day. And to maybe check with them about programming that they may have.
Yeah,
I guess-
you brought up a lot of great points. On the leasing side, the lease that you are familiar with, again, on the personal side is what the dealership brick and mortar is accustomed to. So that's the type of lease you would see even if a government entity decided to go that route. And what you're going to see is, wear and tear penalties, mileage penalties, as well as no equity benefit at the end. That's typically how those dealership leases work. And our leases are the complete opposite. So they're commercial government entity leases. So essentially it's going to allow you to have ownership rights, no mileage penalties, no wear and tear penalties. I'm sure Howard and Nick in the parks, they can attest to the application at hand in those departments and what those vehicles do go through. So this type of flexibility that we offer our current government clients provides them the most amount of benefit, considering that the dealership lease is typically more geared towards the personal lease side of things.
Kathy, additional questions?
Just for clarification, Matt, again, you said that the program you were looking at starting off with an initial 13 vehicles, and then through the charts, the dollar, the $115,435, it was talking about 23 vehicles. So for what is the time period for the first 13? I mean, before you move into potential full 23?
Great question. So in the initial year, we're looking anywhere between the 13 and 15 number mark to replace. Ultimately, Adam and the council members, Adam's team and the council members have the ability to increase that number or decrease that number. It's more, for example, the 23 number is the total amount of vehicles that when we first initiated this conversation is what we identified of the vehicle types and the number of vehicles that we could work with under our program. And then through the due diligence, we found that there's actually a total of about 27 vehicles with some police department vehicles and fire vehicles that are non-ERV vehicles. They're unmarked. That could be part of the program as well. So initially those 13 or the 15, which you saw in the menu pricing and the synopsis, is just an initial year one start to show you the finance impact on leasing versus paying cash on your current model. Because right now we can replace 15 vehicles with all upfit needs brand new for roughly $70,000 in comparison to what the city would go forward without enterprise is buying 2 new vehicles and 1 dump body for a used chassis. So when you compare 15 new vehicles versus your 2 vehicles with 1 new dump body, that's the impact that we're going to be able to bring right away in the first year.
So maybe just one final question, maybe directed more to Adam. If this is something that the city would decide, I don't know what kind of a timetable for sure, but in the CIP for 2021, there's a $30,000 pickup tagged for the park department.
Right.
What happens with that?
So that's where we're that 77 roughly $1,000. That's including that. So there's it's the $30,000 is the pickup truck for the parks. There was $12,000 that was allocated. It was either about for the
Dump body.
And then in the water and sewer budget, they're also looking at replacing another vehicle as well, which is roughly the $30,000. So that 77 was a direct budget that we sent them based on the CIP budget that was established.
And so Kathy, I think what Adam is saying is that pickup truck would be added at water and sewer. The pickup truck would go to the parks department. Instead of a dump body on some truck, we'd actually get a new truck and upfit it with a dump body. So the upfit cost, that 16,000 or whatever, is in addition to, right? The upfit costs are in addition to. And besides that, since it's 13 vehicles, we get another 10 new vehicles
Right.
somewhere in something that had been scheduled to be replaced, but we couldn't buy new.
Correct.
Correct.
So we would have 13 new vehicles rather than 2 new vehicles and a dump body.
Mhm.
Is that the way I understand this?
And still
Correct.
coming under your current estimated.
And still
spend.
come under the $77,000 that we've allocated in the CIP.
Yes.
Okay.
Almost. I don't think it quite works because of the up charges.
Well,
for
the
the two.
upfit costs are included in the analysis in that estimated year one menu pricing for 2021.
Oh, because they were in another line on your
Yeah.
spreadsheet. So they looked like they were add-ons.
Yeah, so the larger dollars in that column for the upfit equipment or the money down for the upfit equipment, some of the upfit bodies are roughly $16,000 to $17,000 to add on. And when we have a vehicle that needs $10,000 or more in upfit cost, we typically ask the entity to supply 50% of the upfit down. So if it's a $17,000 body, we're roughly looking at a near $8,200 or so to put down on that. So that's why when you see the 16,000, there's a quantity of 2 on the far left column that shows that we're looking at 2 vehicles. That's why that number is at 16,000 and change for the money down. The rest of that 50% is already capped into the capitalized price and the lease payment. So it is covering all aspects of that.
Okay. All right, Ken.
Yes. My first question, here in Platteville, we have Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler. The vehicles that you recommend, would they be mainly from those 3? Or do you recommend beyond the 3?
If you were asking for my recommendation today to move forward with a specific vehicle, I would recommend the General Motors brand and compare it to others.
So you'd recommend, you had a listing there of Sierras, had a whole bunch of them. Okay. And my question was, would you move beyond as far as distance away from Platteville as far as any other brand of vehicle? No.
We're a privately held business, so we represent all the manufacturers. So if there is a manufacturer of choice, the city of Platteville would trump any enterprise recommendation. We would certainly go with that recommendation per city of Platteville. However, as your fleet consultant, we're going to objectively look at all manufacturers that provide the best incentives for government entities up front, as well as the life cycle of each vehicle. So if we looked at a General Motors, we'll call it a GMC Sierra versus a Ram or Ford F-150, we're looking at those 3 vehicles at what can we buy it for, and then what can we sell them at month 12, 24, or 36, or 48 months. And we're looking at the cost of ownership over that vehicle's life. And we also do take into consideration maintenance and fuel cost. So those are the details and reports that Adam and his team would receive a few times a year from the dedicated account team. That would help show you what vehicle is the optimum vehicle to cycle or optimum vehicle to operate. And then we'd also show you the optimum cycle with that manufacturer.
Now, as far as maintenance, would, say, a local company do all the maintenance on a vehicle? For example, ordinary oil changes and filter changes. Would they come out and pick up the vehicle, or does the city of Platteville have to take the vehicle out to them and then have an employee come back and so forth? So how is that going to be set up? So will all the maintenance be done by a local company?
Great question. So the city of Platteville and its council members have the opportunity to decide if they want to keep their service in-house, whether their own mechanic services their own vehicles, or if they would like to service part of their fleet or all their fleet out to local vendors in the community. So to answer your question, yes, the maintenance can be done in-house and can be done at or in local community vendors in your local community.
And the vendor, maybe a picky point, but the vendor could pick up the vehicle to service it.
That would be a discussion for the city of Platteville to have with your local vendors to see if that's feasible. of manpower and logistics to coordinate that.
Matt, do I hear you correct that this ongoing maintenance, like all oil changes, filters, air filters, windshield wiper blades, whatever these ordinary maintenance items are really separate from the contract?
No, they're not. We do take into consideration all of that. So some of your vehicles, for example, if you're operating a half-ton pickup truck for a 12-month period, we would bypass all maintenance on that vehicle unless something came up like a flat tire or cracked windshield, whatever it might be. But when we look at your typical routine oil change and tire rotations and brake checkpoints, we have the ability to operate on a fixed maintenance program for our clients. So the city of Platteville would pay Enterprise monthly for that service. So our analysis initially showed that, explaining how our maintenance program works is a fixed cost. You can go to your local vendors to outsource that maintenance and you pay Enterprise for that service. Or we can go on a pay-as-you-go program with your local vendors and have that routine maintenance and service done at your local shops and service vendors. And then Enterprise pays the shops directly and then invoices the city of Platteville the following month for the services provided. So ultimately, the city has the decision power on if they want to service vehicles in-house, if they want to outsource maintenance, and if they want to fix their maintenance costs with using outside vendors as well. So there's two programs, a fixed program and a pay-as-you-go, and it ultimately depends on if you want to outsource maintenance or if you want to have just in-house maintenance in your four walls.
And my last question is, I don't have a new vehicle, so my question may not be very clear, but anyway, do you recommend synthetic oil for vehicles, which could decrease the frequency of maintenance?
It's a great question. The recommendation on what specific type of oil or tires to use is always leaned on the manufacturer's recommendations and checkpoints. We work our vendors in the service and vendor area of maintenance. They're all ASE certified techs, so they all have ASE certified technicians that are servicing these vehicles. In conjunction with that, Enterprise has over 200 ASE certified technicians that service our clients across the country that have vendors calling those technicians every single day for service repairs and orders. So when you do outsource your maintenance to a local Firestone or the Chevy dealership, that technician is actually connecting with Enterprise and getting expertise advice, recommending repairs or not recommending repairs, and ultimately recommending what should or shouldn't be done with that service repair. So to answer your question, we always rely on what the manufacturer represents or recommends for oil change or service. And then if you think about it, some of your vehicles may only have 1 or 2 oil changes in their existence of City of Platteville.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt, is this an annual, is this a contract? And is there a length of contract?
So there is no contract that the City of Platteville would sign to partner with Enterprise. If the City of Platteville engaged in leasing a vehicle, you would just be financially responsible to pay Enterprise for that vehicle until it is eventually paid off to $0. However, the program is flexible. So if you wanted to part ways with Enterprise 24 months into a 48-month lease, we simply look at what the vehicle's value is in the marketplace versus what it's on the books for. And that could swing a positive or negative outcome for the city. However, with the government buying power the city possesses and the way Enterprise can sell a government municipal vehicle, chances are from day one that the city is in an equity position. So you are always going to be in an equity position on every single vehicle in almost the existence of our partnership based on those parameters alone.
Okay. Adam, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Currently, when we budget vehicles, we budget them in the CIP because would this be CIP funding?
Yes. So this would, you essentially would have this as it'd be a fixed cost.
So
more
council
than-
members, you should know that if we adopt this, that's saying that when we look at the CIP next year and the year after and the year after, right away, it's this fixed cost, whatever it is for this contract. That has to be funded. It's not an option. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Adam?
Well,
It becomes not
you
an
can look at
option.
it a couple of ways. So it can continue to be a CIP because you're replacing vehicles. So the vehicles, our CIP policy is if it's $10,000 or more or has an extended life, I think of 2 or 3 years. So you would have that option. So that's one scenario. Is it would be a fixed rate that would be in the CIP every single year, or if because of the fact that we know it is a fixed amount, it could be put into it's still going to be used by tax dollars either way. So it's essentially, it could be shifted to the general fund, but then it's kind of the same thing. You're going to have less money going towards the CIP because you're not budgeting that amount.
Right. So
Right.
I want people to understand that. I
Yep.
think Kathy, you said earlier, if you had known something about something that we committed to earlier, if you had known the effect it would have had on a decision later, maybe you would have said something different. So I wanted to make sure that people understand, and that's not, I'm not saying that positive or negative.
Right.
I'm just
Nope.
saying it as a fact
Right.
that, this would be there and the expectation would be it's just solid. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not a negotiable item. It's not like, well, let's just not do that
Right.
this year. We'll delay that a year. No, it becomes, yes, that's part of the plan and we'll do that.
Yep.
So that's important, I believe, for understanding.
Yep. Good question.
Other questions? Isaac, on the second round, do you have any other questions after hearing the questions?
Just the part that you just brought up, I think makes sense. That portion itself may need to be brought up at a different time.
That part.
Like how we do it in the future, if we're going to do CIP or move it over to the general. That's just something
Right.
I think that would be discussed at a different time.
Right, it's just that it has to be there, whichever place it is.
Correct.
Right. Eileen, any additional questions, comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Kathy
Nothing further right now.
and Ken.
No additional.
Okay, so I think, Adam, your question is the council interested in learning more and kind of going down this path? Or are we saying right now, thank you, Matt, but we don't we don't see this as an option? I mean, we aren't committing to this at this point in time. What we would be doing is committing staff time to further investigation and further flushing this out.
Correct. The intention.
Is that right?
Yeah, the intention would be if we kind of get the general vibe that the council does want to continue down further discussions, we then will kind of dig into some of the, I think, due diligence questions that came up, as we talked about the insurance. I think Kathy, brought up some good points about, how will this potentially impact, local businesses, et cetera, what's that? And as we've kind of had this conversation with Matt, normally this is not a, one-time conversation and then it goes to a vote. Our intention would be, if the council wants, this would come back again as an information and discussion item until the council feels they're at a point where, just like you said, either it's we tell Matt, thanks for coming, or you definitely want to look at potentially a vote.
Okay. So perhaps we could just go around and you could indicate, yes, if you think we want more staff time and information dedicated to this, or no, if you're, or I don't know, I don't want to really take a vote. Maybe what we should do, can we see everyone's hands? If you want to give a thumbs up to a continuing discussion, put your thumb up. Continuing discussion on this. Thumb up.
Can't hear you, Barb.
I don't know why.
What were you asking us?
If
I
you
said-
want to continue, put your thumb up.
You don't want the whole hand?
Well, I think we got your thumb there.
You're muted now, Barb.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
You're right. Good grief. All this zooming. Thumb up if you want to continue discussion.
We're voting twice.
No, I think Kathy can now hear me, but if she put her thumb up, I couldn't.
Yes,
There we go.
but as part of the continuing discussion, I would like to encourage the staff to touch base with the local new car dealers.
Sure.
Find out if their input and if they have opportunities,
Certainly.
for comparison.
And I would add also that noting that Grant County is already using this service, I would be interested, Adam, in having you talk with somebody over there and see how long they've been doing it, how it's working. Okay.
Sure.
And Adam, if we could get a copy of what he has already sent to you, that full package there.
Yep.
I actually think that was sent to us because I actually had that. I think it was
I have-
sent like yesterday or so.
I have 3 different things. Let me make sure that's the full. But I don't think it's the full pack of what we just went through on the shared screen.
Okay.
Like what cities and municipalities are involved. I
Yeah.
don't see that part, so that would be interesting to see.
I can send that to Adam after this meeting. I'll
Yep.
send it to Adam.
Good. All right, guys. Well, Matt, I don't know where you live or where you're coming to us from, but wherever that is.
I'm in Waukesha County, so in Colgate,
Okay,
Wisconsin.
so, okay. Well, then, thank you for attending our meeting, and we'll move on with our agenda item. You're welcome to continue to stay, but if you disappear, we won't hold it against you.
All right. Just want to say
Okay.
thank you for the opportunity this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the next information and discussion item on our agenda is the inclusivity, diversity, and equity update. Adam.
Yeah, so the big one obviously on here tonight is in regards to what we are now calling the acronym of TIDE, which is the Task Force for Inclusivity, Diversity, and Equity. And obviously a potential marketing slogan for this task force could be that Platteville is shifting the tide to inclusion, diversity, and equity. I know it's corny, but hey, sometimes we need some corniness, that's fine. So as you can see, Council President Doss created the document that got sent out, where what we would like to do is start advertising this, obviously working with Communication Specialist Richards on a kind of press informational release that would go out, where we would be asking for individuals that would be interested in being on, the TIDE committee, to send in kind of a letter explaining some of their, recommendations or expertise that then could be reviewed by the council. Then we would be accepting those letters till the end of the month of November. And then the intention would be, the anticipation would be then that the members would be appointed to the task force at the December 8th, 2020 council meeting. Otherwise, so that's obviously one of the things that we can kind of discuss and want to make sure there aren't any questions or additions or changes there. And then just some 2 quick short informational updates. Just reminding everybody again of the presentations that Jamie Collins now are locked in that is going to be presenting in January. So there's 2 of them. There's one that's going to be for during the department heads kind of meeting on January 13th. Obviously the council is more than welcome to attend that if you wish at 9 a.m. But otherwise, then there'll also be the similar presentation will be done just for the council members on January 26th from 6 to 7. So before that meeting. And then one of the things that Chief McKinley and I are continuing to work on is a partnership with the University of Platteville and also the school district, where we are solidifying some dates to start meeting on bias reporting discussions, where all 3 of our entities will be kind of looking at different reporting metrics for inclusivity, diversity, and equity, and kind of looking at different ways we can approach that. So that is the kind of the quick 3 hitters.
Okay, folks. Questions of Adam, comments, suggestions? Isaac.
Done.
Okay. Eileen.
No questions or comments.
Kathy.
maybe just a minor one on the, where it's on the page where the diversity statement is listed. And it says the city council is currently accepting letters of interest. And people should include their skills, experiences, and knowledge. Then it said, additionally, letters should include reference to any conferences, webinars, seminars, and/or workshops centered on all of that. Are we kind of screening individuals so that if they haven't attended a webinar or a conference, they're not gonna, I understand why they would, why it would be good to know that, but is that gonna weigh more? I mean, some people might think, oh, that's, I haven't done that, so I'm not, and there's no reason for me to even apply. That would be my only comment about that.
Okay. We can try to work something. The question, the question always in a group like this is, and let me tell you, sometimes it is really difficult to get people to volunteer.
Right.
Takes lots and lots of calls. So the question is, will we be flooded with volunteers or will we not get any? And if we're flooded, how are we going to make decisions? So but we will look through that and try to figure out how to say, this would be helpful information or something.
Yeah.
Would be helpful to know, or we'll figure out a way to kind of make it a little bit, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the word softer. I don't know if that's a good word or not.
That's all.
Good. Ken?
No additions. The acronym TIDE, I'll have to think about that one. Thank you.
We're all smiling.
If you got something better, I'm all ears. That was the quickest thing I could come up with. So
Yeah, Adam came up with that, and then I had to change the order because it didn't work. So then it became inclusivity, diversity, and equity. That's not the way we originally had written it, but it's still the 3 words because it was supposed to be tied. And so it should probably, Okay, let's move on. Item E on our discussion agenda, which is contract 920 for snow and ice removal. Howard.
Yes, good evening, thank you. With the rapid change in temperature, we need to start thinking about snow and ice removal. And so every year we contract the snow and ice removal in front of properties that don't shovel their walks. We have a $30 admin fee per parcel on top of the actual contractor fee. We had 2 bids this time, one by Four Seasons and one by Southwest Lawn Care. Based on the numbers, we're recommending going with Four Seasons Lawn Care. We've done business with them in the past, and I would recommend that we award that to them this time.
Okay, questions on snow and ice removal? Not that we really want to talk about it, but questions. Isaac? Any question
So I
here?
was reading through, so I was reading through Howard's letter here. And so it looks like that after the snow quits, 24 hours is when the code enforcement officer will go out. And then from that time, when will that list be given to the contractor?
Oh, sorry. We give these people 24 hours to correct the deficiency. So it'll be a total of 48 hours after the end of the snowfall before the contractor can begin work on that.
Okay. And if I know it's some of the staffing hours or the, last year was issue, like if it happened on a Friday evening or Friday, sometimes people didn't get there until Monday or Tuesday. Is that gonna be corrected this year as well then, hopefully?
It's based on the hours for our code enforcement officer. I mean, if, we do have the ability for the contractor to go out over the weekend, but if,
Okay.
but I don't expect our code enforcement officer to go out on Saturday for a snowfall that ended on Friday.
So then
Is
here
there
it
a
lays
reason?
here it lays the problem again. We could be having
Right.
3-4 days and then it snows again. And then if you do the calendar right, it could be the following Saturday. So you could have 3-4 snowfalls or 2 or 3. And we know, and that was one of the discussions. Actually, it's a discussion we have every year with this thing. So somewhere along the line, I think that needs to be changed. So,
I do too. I thought we had addressed that last year, that said we were going to have some kind of floating hours or something, so that why are we having a code enforcement officer working when the real work needs to be on Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon instead of Tuesday?
Okay, I will review that.
Okay, Eileen.
No questions.
Questions on this? Kathy.
No questions.
Ken. Ken.
What do you want?
Any questions on snow or ice removal, the contract?
Are you asking Kathy or me?
You.
Okay. My comment is the code enforcement officer, as I recall, is only half-time. So that, how are you gonna take that into account? Which half of the week he's gonna work?
That was Isaac's comment. I said that we would discuss, I would investigate that and bring that back next time.
If you can predict when it snows, then we can tell him when to work.
Right.
Okay, I think that's enough on snow and ice removal. We don't want to talk about that before we have to. So we'll move to our last information and discussion item, which is the sidewalk policy. Much like Jason requested specifically for the discussion to be had by committee, we had a council member specifically request that we talk about sidewalks again in information and discussion. So we're going to do that, so thank you. And I believe this afternoon, Adam sent out several of the questions he received and several of the answers. So I have forgotten whose item this is. Joe, is it you?
I was one of the staff working on it, yes.
Oh, there he is. Okay. I'm like looking all over for you, Joe, and you came up on a different place on my screen all of a sudden. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have anything as far as changes or modifications to the draft policy since last time. So basically, we were just looking for if the council had any additional questions or requests for information or any input into the draft policy that they would like us to incorporate before you take a vote on it.
Okay. So Adam, did you compile the sidewalk policy discussion item questions? Was that you? Was it Joe?
Yeah.
Was it Howard?
It was kind of a joint effort between all of us, so I will try to do this. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay,
I
so
do.
this is the document that I kind of sent out based on the questions that we received from council members and when we asked to kind of look over the document. So one of the first ones obviously was what is the cost to install sidewalk where there is an existing street but no street reconstruction is done? Wondering what the cost is per foot. So just as an example, Howard was kind of able to provide, Camp Street as an example had a total cost of $42,050.03 was the measured distance. So roughly about $46.46 per linear foot. Something to take into account to both of kind of these questions is driveway repairs that are being done can increase the cost of the per square foot. So then another question was kind of what is the cost per foot when a street is being reconstructed? So Market Street was the example used on this one. So there was the total cost of concrete, sidewalk, and driveway came to about $72,000. So roughly about $29.72 per linear foot. Just some things to remember when doing a separate contract. There are mob costs. Howard, do you want to explain what mob costs are?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, mobilization, sorry.
There we go. That needs to be added in when a street contract can spread. One of the questions that was asked was in section D3 under planned unit developments, the intent is that the project include private and public sidewalks. So there is no requirement for private sidewalks in a single family, duplex, commercial, multifamily, or industrial. So just kind of reiterate, so during a planned unit development approval, the council can waive any requirement of the zoning ordinance, including the need for sidewalk. The policy normally requires sidewalk, but it is worded to indicate a desire to have sidewalks installed, but it recognizes the council obviously has the final decision and can waive the need for them if they desire that for the project. So.
Okay,
Yep.
I did have somebody ask me, can you please define what is a public sidewalk and what is a private sidewalk? I mean, so the intent is that projects include private sidewalks. Is a private sidewalk the sidewalk that comes to my front door?
Yeah, a private sidewalk would be between the right-of-way and the parking lot structure. A public sidewalk would be in the street right-of-way. So the idea with the planning and development is since we have a bit more control over both aspects, we could, require a connection, not only installation of a public sidewalk if there isn't one there now, but we could also require a sidewalk connecting from that public sidewalk perpendicular street to lead to the actual building, the front entrance.
So do we have that requirement for single family dwellings?
No, what I'm referring to is during a plan unit development approval.
No, I know. But so the second part of that question said, so there is no requirement for private sidewalks in single family, duplex, commercial, multifamily, or industrial areas? Is there a requirement for private sidewalks if I put up an apartment building?
Actually, the existing policy does have a requirement for private sidewalks for multifamily. Otherwise, there would be no requirements in our ordinance for private sidewalks.
For single family, duplex, commercial, or industrial?
Correct.
Okay.
So generally, the only time we would get into that type of approval would be during a plan unit development review.
Okay. Okay.
So the next question was just kind of does the Safe Route Committee fall under the Director of Public Works Department, the Community Development Office, or the Park and Rec Department? And is this policy coming from bike enthusiasts or literally from one of the city departments? So the answer is basically the Community Safe Routes Committee was created by the Common Council to advocate for safe pedestrian and bike routes throughout the city. Public Works is the primary staff liaison, but the Recreation Director also attends. The members are selected by the Common Council President and approved by the Common Council. There are 2 standing members, one chosen by the Platteville Community Arboretum to represent the Roundtree Branch Trail and similar activities. The other is chosen by the school superintendent to represent the school district and needs of school children in getting to and from school. There is a Common Council representative to act as a liaison between the committee and the Common Council. As in most of our committees, the citizens selected have a passion for strongly advocating for their particular concern. It's no different than a historical preservation committee or a commission on aging in this respect. The Plan Commission was working an ordinance revision in conjunction with community planning. There were concerns that the ordinance were unclear and provided loopholes for developers with respect to whether sidewalk installation was required. So kind of through the conversations, it was decided that Community Safe Routes Committee and the Plan Commission should work together to develop recommendations for the Common Council on adopting the ordinance changes. During the initial discussion, the members of both bodies decided that a policy should be developed to declare the intent of the city of Platteville as approved by the Common Council that will guide ordinance changes and provide the framework for staff in reviewing individual developer proposals. Part of the policy is that the two groups will recommend a plan for eventual sidewalk/bike path connectivity through Platteville. This plan would also then need to be approved by the Common Council. Any questions?
And Adam, I would add that the Community Safe Routes Committee was an outgrowth of a committee that was called Safe Routes to Schools.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember the Safe Routes to Schools initiatives that were, I'm thinking 10 years ago.
Sure.
But that's how it started. There were Safe Routes to Schools. And then after that, committee was meeting and helping to determine how to get children or youth or students safely from residents walking to school. That was which as we look at last year's completion of the Camp Street sidewalk, was certainly a route that was determined as a safe route for students to take to school. Okay, so you can go on now, Adam.
Okay. So number 5, one of the questions we asked was, shouldn't we list the exceptions related towards not installing sidewalks? We originally had this in the document, and I think in conversations with the Planning Commission and also Safe Routes, the consensus of the two groups was to have minimal exceptions, and that these exceptions would then need to be granted by the Common Council after review by staff and committees. They have identified criteria to be used to approve the exceptions. So we originally had a lot of the exceptions that could be utilized, and through kind of the various conversations, the recommendation from both the Planning Commission and also the Safe Routes was to have it be, if they want an exception, they need to go in front of the council and try to get that, instead of kind of giving them, you know, a free pass and knowing exactly what exceptions would be granted. So number 6 was, why should there be a fee imposed to apply for an exception? Staff recommended a fee for the additional staff time involved in reviewing and making staff recommendations to committees and the Common Council regarding a request for an exception to a policy. The Common Council may decide to waive the fee. This is very similar to kind of variance requests are another one that require a fee. It covers the additional staff time that is needed, potentially some of the committee work that may need to be done. So it's just a way to kind of ensure that, you know, it's just, you don't have, if you really want that exception, you got to go through that process. Number 7, does the policy exclude or include the industrial park? Would this provide additional disincentive for someone to locate a business in our industry park? Should PADIC be involved in if including? So this is something staff will need guidance from the council on further, as there was not a clear consensus that came out of, I think, either the Safe Route. I think Safe Routes definitely indicated they would like to see sidewalks pretty much anywhere. So there was definitely advocacy there. But I would agree, I think in the Planning Commission level, that was one of the concerns that was addressed, that yes, I mean, if you're going to require an industrial developer to put in sidewalks, that could have an impact on their bottom line of relocating to your community. So there is the potential this policy could provide developers to choose not to locate in the industrial park because of the cost, or essentially it would require the city to offer it as part of an incentive. So just something to consider. Has the city had conversations with any developers who are interested in building more affordable housing? And if so, will the added cost of insisting they put sidewalks in deter them? So obviously city staff continues to meet with potential developers and attend webinars about affordable housing. I think this is a legitimate concern that I've kind of addressed in all of the meetings, is, to have with the cost of building and incentives needed to make projects work. It certainly could deter a developer from building. The same can be said though about other requirements as well as stormwater management, et cetera. It's a cost that certainly will have to be factored into the development, and whether, again, at the end of the day, the city has to make the decision if this truly is a project that, we want to happen. Either then it becomes an incentive, or, that's when the conversation occurs of, do you enter into some type of deferred, agreement where it has to be put in at a later date? Or do you require him to do it? So then number 9 was major concern with costs. How do we plan for future maintenance? So again, this is kind of the conversation of, this is something the city will have to discuss in more detail. Currently within our CIP budget, we do budget around $30,000 annually for sidewalk repair. But again, that is not a number that, it has been set in stone. It does have some flexibility based on where the city is with its budget and where, certain items need to come in. So, in most years we do try to fund $30,000, but depending on where the budget lies, it could be less, it could be more. So it's just something, again, kind of getting in the habit of a true, if we do consider this to be a true cost that is going to be, the city is continually going to burden that and not do, a special assessment or anything along those lines, then yes, we are going to need to consider moving forward, having a more defined capital improvement plan that has those costs. So again, it's just shifting the mindset of that becomes another one of those dollar values that no longer is reviewed as, well, we can tweak that or we can change that. It's nope, that is set in stone. That's the amount that has to be in there. So then the last question obviously was, is the plan to have this policy approved in time for the 2021 project for Dewey Street? So just again, with street reconstruction, it was the intent of this policy that all streets when reconstructed would have sidewalks on both sides. The Director of Public Works can request an exception based on the criteria in this policy. Market Street did not have sidewalks on the south side between Chestnut and Elm. It was installed during the 2020 reconstruction project. It is the intent that the Dewey Street project will be designed with sidewalks on both sides. As stated, there's an approximately 900 feet on the south side of Dewey from water to just a couple houses east of 2nd Street that currently does not have sidewalk. Unless the council directs otherwise, the plans will include this sidewalk at this time. And those are all the questions we had.
Okay, folks. Those were the questions that were posed. And so I guess the question I have is, I mean, you've all had this a couple of weeks now. Do you want to share? We'll do a round robin. Share comments, concerns, questions on the questions, answers, additional questions, etc. Isaac, you're first.
I'll just reiterate my my concerns about having a new contract, a new subdivision required to put sidewalks into both sides of the street, especially when, as I've said before, pretty much the most potential areas that we would have a new subdivision right now doesn't even have sidewalks getting to that potential subdivision. And then in the industrial park, as Adam just stated out here, again, that could be another reason why we don't get a manufacturing job or a company. So, I was one of the ones that was against this in the plan development. I'm still against this portion of it. So.
Okay. Eileen.
I guess I have a couple of concerns. One is the on the first page, it's C with installation of sidewalks for street projects, and I kind of echo, I think, what Isaac is referring to. We have some rather large subdivisions right now that have no sidewalks, and according to this proposal, when those streets have to be reconstructed, sidewalks would be required. I'm not sure that I would agree that they are necessary in existing subdivisions. So I would have a concern about that. I'm also concerned about the cost because it is expensive, A, to put the sidewalks in, and then you have to maintain them afterwards. And so I really am struggling with the idea of just because you have a street reconstruction, you automatically put in sidewalks. The Camp Street, I was an advocate for because, again, kids were walking on the street to get to Westview School or to middle school. So I think, and I understand it could be an exception, but we're going to have quite a few meetings, I think, if we start just blanketly saying that if we do street reconstruction, you have to put in sidewalks. On the bottom of the first page, it talks about installation of sidewalks for development and redevelopment projects. And it talks about all applicable projects, that include sidewalk along the frontage of the property. So in these particular instances, it sounds like you're only required to have sidewalk in the frontage, but not on the side streets, let's say. So I guess I need to rethink that or understand that a little better. I did ask a question about the private sidewalks because I wondered if I was going to be controlled or required to put sidewalks to my front door, which I don't have right now. And then on the plan unit developments, excuse me, that was a plan unit development question. And then when we get into sidewalk construction standards, it says sidewalks shall be constructed of concrete or asphalt or masonry. Pavers may be allowed. I'm wondering why we would allow an asphalt sidewalk. I don't understand why we would even call that a sidewalk. To me, that's a trail. So I guess I was wondering where that idea came from. I think that's all I have from what I've read so far. Well, let me go to the last page. It says the Common Council, after receiving, I'm sorry, the bottom of page 3, receiving direction from the Director of Public Works and the other committees, you could deny the exception, you could approve the exception, you could allow for a delayed sidewalk. Or the last one is for subdivisions, the council may allow for sidewalk to be installed on only one side of the street. I don't know what that means for other areas, what that means for commercial. For example, if we decide commercial, is it okay then to have only one side on commercial areas as well? I know those are a lot of questions. I can certainly ask them again, you know, write them down if you want me to, but those are some of the things that I did wonder about after reading through the information.
Okay, Joe, do you want to take a shot at some of the questions she asked?
Well, the last one, I think the intent when it says for subdivisions, that would be any type of subdivision, whether it's residential, commercial, et cetera. If you're putting in a street to serve a new development, then the sidewalks would be required. You know, the other cases for commercial, if you've got an existing lot on a street that has infill development and there's no sidewalk present, then obviously they would only have to put sidewalk in along the frontage of that lot where that development is going. But I think first, when it says for subdivisions, they're talking about any type of new development that includes new street infrastructure. Other questions that she had, I wasn't sure when one of the other comments that she was making, and now I forgot what it was.
Was it the trail versus the concrete?
No, it was the one before that.
I'm not sure, Joe, if that was the one about installation of sidewalks for street projects where you would have to put them in if the street project was done.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Question about subparagraph D at the bottom of page 1 about your public and private, or did I miss that?
Well, the public and private, the idea that it was answered earlier that private sidewalks are not required.
Right,
and
correct.
the city has no control over those. But I don't know why it would be asphalt or masonry. I mean, I can't imagine having an asphalt sidewalk. I don't know where you would do that.
I agree that would more likely be a trail instead of a sidewalk. I think that was the issue. I also think that between Safe Routes and Plan Commission, when they talked about pavers, they were thinking that somebody could use that to reduce stormwater using some sort of a porous asphalt or masonry pavers in order to get credits for stormwater. I think that was kind of why that was put in there.
That's all.
Kathy?
Okay, few things. I guess my biggest concern is the overall cost. The policy in its current state seems very heavy with making it so that every street has to have a sidewalk. And the question about Dewey Street as part of the CIP for 2021, sidewalks, I mean, there is a significant amount of street that does not have a sidewalk on the proposed Dewey Street project for next year from Water to Elm. One question I have is if it's planned, it's in the budget to do the sidewalks. So is the policy for the city when they do a street construction project like that? Howard, I heard you say that the letter had gone out to property owners about being aware that surveyors are going to be out marking things. Have those property owners been told that they're going to be installing sidewalk?
I don't
Because
believe that that was included in the initial letter. We have 2 more opportunities for public input. One will be in December, January timeframe, where we do an initial briefing for property owners along the street. And that would be their first opportunity to learn about the proposed plans to include public sidewalks and things like that. The second one is usually after we are done bidding so that we can tell the homeowners when we expect the construction to start and details like that.
Okay, so with the Dewey Street, and it's right 2 blocks from me, I recently walked it again. Was the reason for including sidewalks with that for access for school kids?
Okay.
Is that what the driving force was for that?
It's.
I mean, it's sort of on the stretch between middle school and the high school. And it does come off of a busy Water Street. So it's just a question. But I guess when I'm always looking at the budget for specifically that street, I could see the potential for completing sidewalk on one side instead of both sides. So if we don't make a change to this policy right off the bat, the project that we've got being already surveyed it's going to be demanded that there will be sidewalk on both sides, correct?
Right. I mean, when we've been looking at street reconstruction the past few years, unless there's a topographic or other reason why we've been installing sidewalks on both sides in order to complete the sidewalk grid, if you will. We've done that on Virgin Avenue. We did that on Virgin Avenue. It's just one section that we didn't because of geography and how close some of the houses came, but Ellen Street had it, Cedar Street, 4th Street, all of these streets, we've been completing the grid, if you will, and that's what the intent has been.
Broadway.
Broadway, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And then even when we did the construction project on 81 to Montfort, there was a sidewalk put in.
Oh, okay, so that concept then, that precedence is already that the precedence is in place. So when we're wrestling with CIP projects, that cost is factored in for the most part. No surprises after the fact. Not big on surprises, but I keep coming back to the cost of whether or not it needs to be both sides of every single street, strictly because of cost. And then when you add in however many, I don't know how sidewalk is even figured, but what's the maintenance proposal for? I mean, where how many feet or cubic yards or cubic feet of sidewalk need to be have work done on them every year? So if we're adding more sidewalks, is that getting extended out the same as the street construction projects, just because of the added cost? Is there a plan to increase the sidewalk maintenance fund?
I do not have a plan to do that. That's basically part of our annual CIP discussions on what the city can and cannot afford.
Okay, I think that's what I've got for right now.
Okay. Ken,
Continuing on with asphalt sidewalks, what about pavers? Who's going to decide on the installation of pavers? Homeowner?
What we're saying is that if a developer comes in and wants to install pavers in lieu of a concrete sidewalk, they need to present that to me, the reason why they would be doing that and all of that. My concern with pavers would be the winter maintenance. You know, as pavers move and heave, it'll be harder for the property owner to shovel that sidewalk. But a lot of times what they will do is they'll let, they would want to do something like that, as I explained earlier, to minimize impervious surfaces and use that for stormwater mediation. So those are the considerations that I would have. I would definitely lean for concrete, of course, but if there's a good reason to go with something else, I'd at least listen to it.
Personally, I wouldn't favor pavers because they're too difficult to, for example, scrape in the wintertime to keep them clean, to keep the ice off. I think they'd be very difficult.
Mhm.
And also, as far as the sidewalks on both sides of the street, we've gone over that discussion a number of times. As you know, one side of the street can be too steep. Has there been any discussion about if there's only one side of the street having a sidewalk, a sharing of the cost between the residents on both sides?
sharing what cost, Ken?
The cost of maintenance, scraping, shoveling. I wouldn't want to be the poorest person that has to be getting the sidewalk and maintain the thing, even though you would say, well, the person has a sidewalk now in front of his property. But when you go out there in the wintertime, when it's cold and frozen, that becomes a different story. So my question is, we have talked about this. Is there any serious discussion about sharing the cost between the residents? If only one sidewalk is put into the street, put into the area, into the street, along the street. That's all I have.
Howard or Joe, do you want to reply to that?
I would be, you know, if I was on a street that had sidewalk on one side of the street, you know, I would love it if I had sidewalk and my neighbor across the street said, yeah, I'll shovel it once or twice a season. Do I actually think that'll happen? No. You know, so I don't know how you cost share that type of maintenance. As far as any other maintenance, that's funded out of the city's budget and not assessed back to property owners. So it technically is shared right now.
Yeah, but the property owner is the one that's shoveling it.
No.
The city doesn't come along and shovel it. When we required sidewalk all the way out to Mineral, all right along what Mineral Street there, those people have a long distance of sidewalk to maintain. I assume they get nothing as far as maintenance.
That's correct.
That would be true. It's also true that that is a high use sidewalk. We might not believe so, but having worked out that way for 10 years, I can tell you that was a high use sidewalk.
High what?
A high use.
High use.
High use sidewalk. Lots of people using that sidewalk.
Well, still somebody has to shovel it though.
You're right. Still somebody has to shovel it. I do have a question about cul-de-sacs. We didn't talk about cul-de-sacs, but it would seem to me that these short cul-de-sacs that have 2 or 3 houses on it, I just don't even understand sidewalks on cul-de-sacs. And I don't know that we even address that. I mean, I think about cul-de-sacs on the north edge of town and other places. It seems that we didn't address that. It's kind of like sidewalks. If we had to replace, and I'm probably not going to pick a street name, Oak Crest Drive or something up in Knollwood, and we just had to replace that one piece of that one street where there's no sidewalks, or pick something in the Golden Heights subdivision. If we had to replace one street up there and there's no sidewalks anywhere else, to me, it doesn't make sense to put a sidewalk. Then it's like the sidewalks we have in town. It makes sense to me to connect the sidewalk pieces we have. And I share a concern about one side of the street, but I'm also the council president who at one point flipped a coin. Right, Howard? You remember that? We flipped a coin to see which side of the street the sidewalks would go on. Because they were going to be put in. And, you know, so it was like, okay, how do you guys want to resolve this? They decided, let's flip a coin. So we did. Do they go on the north or do they go on the south? It was a bizarre day. It was a bizarre thing, but it was like, we have to move on. So I would suggest that there have been a lot of questions. There have been a lot of comments. I think the best thing to do now would be to have each, and I haven't even, this is just my thought, is just to have each person now send a note to Adam that says, I would favor this type of change, this type of deletion, this type of addition based on this conversation. And if we all do that in a timely manner, and then Adam can take that and see if there's any consensus among what people are thinking. For instance, I will write down, I don't think there should be sidewalks on cul-de-sacs. I don't see the point of it. You know, so maybe you have other things, like Kathy, you might write down, why both sides of the street? Can't we come up with a, you know, or listen, you might write down, and right now this does not cover the industry park. You might write down, listen, we need to note that this policy doesn't cover the industry park. I don't know, whatever you're thinking and whatever concerns, whatever suggestions for improvement you might have, I would ask that you send that in an email to Adam, and only to Adam. So we are not going to violate an open meeting law. We're not going to have a discussion on email. We're simply, like Adam had questions, we're simply going to now say, listen, on page 1, letter C, I'd like to see whatever. Maybe you'd like to see a definition of private and public sidewalk. Maybe you'd like to see the elimination of pavers because you don't think that's a good idea. But send all that to Adam, and then they can produce kind of a revised or updated document with some cross-throughs, some additions, whatever, so that we can move along this policy. Now, this is not a change to an ordinance. That's right, Joe? And Howard,
Right. So,
this is merely developing a policy that then they will go back to the ordinances and see how that works in. So as we discuss this policy, it's not like the ordinance has been changed. This policy is to give staff direction as they work on ordinance updates and ordinance changes. So while we work on a policy, it's not like, it's not the ordinance. Am I right about that now? Yeah.
correct, yes.
So this is to try and get the policy. What is our feeling? And I think the feeling of the Safe Routes Committee, and Isaac, you can chime in here. I think the feeling of that group, and a lot of the Plan Commission is, we do want a walkable city. And we want people to embrace that, and we want, but how we set that down in policy is more difficult than just talking about it. So it's always difficult to move from your discussed topic into a formulated plan, I guess, or a formulated policy. So I really thank all of you for your discussion on this, and just think about it. And like I said, send Adam your suggestions for improvements, for changes. And if you have further questions, most assuredly send them to Adam, because this isn't something that has to be done tomorrow. It's better to work through the questions and the suggestions and the improvements now than to give it to Joe and Howard and they make ordinance changes, and then in 4 months we're like, well, we didn't even think of that. We didn't even talk about that. Where were we? Why weren't we thinking? So let's read through, send your stuff to Adam, and with Robin and Jason gone this time, this will again be on for information and discussion next time. It will not be moved to action next time. So I don't even know if it'll go in December, but we'll see. So again, suggestions for improvement, changes to Adam, and we'll go from there. Sound okay? Thumbs up? I don't see your thumb, Eileen Nichols. There we go. All right. I have nothing else on the agenda that I had. I don't think you have anything else on the agenda that you had, Adam, either. Do you accept adjournment? Adjournment. I would say one other thing, and that is Adam I most generally every Tuesday have a call with the university just to discuss where they are with COVID. If you have not heard, and I believe Adam has shared it, that the university is participating through UW System and the CDC in at least a 6-week testing program. And you can go to the field house, Bo Ryan Court, and get a test. It's a 15-minute self-administered test. They have you stay. And if you test positive with that self-administered test, then they administer the why can't I think of those initials? PRC?
PCR.
I think that's it. The next test. And then they ask you to go home and isolate until you get that test result in 3 to 5 days. And they kind of had a soft opening yesterday. They had a lot of people. They weren't necessarily students. In fact, I think they learned some things. They learned that not everybody has a printer. They learned that not everybody has a smartphone, because that's how they're sending information for results. So they learned some things, and they're addressing those. And that is open to everyone. So just wanted people to know that. I'm sure they have announcements on the website, and it's been in the paper, and I believe it's been on the radio station. So especially with Thanksgiving coming up and the increased spread, it's something to think about. So that's all I know, except that we're looking for one more motion tonight.
Barb, could I interject real quick before we adjourn? And I mentioned this earlier today at Kiwanis when Adam was there, but I would like to do a shout out to Candace and the entire team. The election process in our community with all the chaos nationwide, I was tremendously impressed with how smooth, the number of people that were there, all the precautions that were taken. So excellent job.
I think, yeah, we said that, and you probably weren't there, Candace, to hear it on election night, but it's very true. I said, in terms of the national discussion now, the thing that saddens me the most is I hope Candace isn't feeling bad, because I think Candace and her team did an extraordinary job. And I don't want her taking any of that stuff in to think that there's anybody here that thinks otherwise, because I think you did an extraordinary job. So two things: getting people through voting, but also having people feel safe voting. And that's kind of a two-pronged thing, one prong that you really never had to worry about before in terms of the health and safety. So, all right, now we'll take a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Great.
Second.
Whoa. Everybody rush.
Give Isaac credit.
Candace?
All right, it's Isaac. Got it. Shanley.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Cop.
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Hey, thanks everyone. Have a good evening.